Hey, what is up, everybody, and welcome to the Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. He is Kevin Reynolds. I am Bobby Wall, and we are here to talk all things football and hit you with some takes that might rattle you up a bit. On tonight's show, we will talk about the Week 16 that was in the NFL, hit you with some news and notes, talk about the MVP race a little bit. I know this is a surprise to Kevin because he does not read the show script,
It's true.
and obviously break down the games that we had and give you our starts of the week. First, Kevin Reynolds, we just had Christmas. An extra gift to you is your Baltimore Ravens beat up on the San Francisco 49ers. So I'm sure I already know the answer to this question, but as always, how you doing, my friend?
Oh, doing all right. About 5 pounds heavier than this time last week. A little tired. Other than that, I'm doing just fine, buddy. It's been raining here for a couple days, so just sort of chilling inside, hanging out. Got my little girl for a couple days. Then we'll break down all the Christmas gear in the house because I think I mentioned here before our house looks like the North Pole in the wintertime. We have, for example, 13 inflatables. 12 of them are indoors. So it's a pretty crazy looking in here.
Why do you have them all inside?
Because one year some little douchebags came by and slit them all out front. So rather than having to sit out front and kill people, we chose to bring them inside.
I think we need to have a decompression moment before we get on the show.
Well, you
Just let
asked.
you, well, you're right. You're right. I guess it is my fault. I okay.
You're
Uh,
left wordless here. A minute in.
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. Those, if you were watching the video, you saw me hold up my signed Allen Iverson jersey. Finally came in the mail today, so pretty pumped about that one. And the boy had a great Christmas.
Is
Lots
that
of
what
cool
that
stuff.
was?
Yeah.
I thought it was a little placard for Dale Earnhardt.
It's the number three. It's a jersey. It's folded up. It's still in the packaging.
Oh yeah, because Allen Iverson, he's just comical to me. I thought it was Dale Earnhardt. You being a country boy now, I thought maybe you got a Dale Earnhardt sign. Because I
No, I
remember
have.
when he died, and I was like sitting there watching TV, and it's still so vivid in my mind. It was so surreal because I love Dale Earnhardt, and
I had a.
realizing watching that live, something was terribly, terribly wrong, and it's still really stuck in my head.
Yeah, I had a grandfather who was huge into NASCAR. I have an enormous amount of NASCAR memorabilia, autographs from Dale Earnhardt, Jeff Gordon, Bill Elliott. I mean,
Yeah.
Richard Petty, you name it. I got it somewhere.
Have you ever been to a live NASCAR event?
I have it, man.
No.
I got that and a hockey match. I need to get to both of those things,
Did you
man.
just call it a hockey match?
I did. I don't know why.
I
Are
don't
they
know you
matches?
anymore. I don't know what's
It
going
was
on.
who has
Nonetheless,
a
you should
tennis
go to both.
match?
Hockey is actually my favorite live event to go to, sporting wise. Just it's so dark. The only thing that's lit up is ice. It's so bright. It's nice and cool. You have a couple $15 12-ounce beers. It's wonderful.
Is is badminton a match? There's wrestling matches and tennis matches.
I think badminton's a match. Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure it'd be called a match.
Hockey's definitely not a match.
No, it's a game. But
Certainly a game.
NASCAR, dude, once they start their engines and you smell that fuel burning, and just to see a car go by you 170 miles an hour, it's 4 inches away from another car. It's
Yeah,
sick,
it's
dude.
insane.
It's
Yeah,
really, really
definitely got to do
cool.
that. All right, sir. Football time. Russell Wilson's getting the hook, getting thrown on the bench for the final 2 weeks. My question to you is why?
Well, there's two reasons. One, he's not been stellar, although I think he's seventh in some metric, quarterback rating, something or other. Everything online says it's about money because they owe him 39 mil guaranteed next year. If he gets hurt and he's still hurt by March, 37 mil of the next year becomes guaranteed.
They're
So
in the
pulling him
playoff
out to make
race.
sure he doesn't get hurt.
I mean, they're in the hunt. They're 7-8, and there's a wild card team at 8-7.
I just read the article before we got on here. Peyton came out today and said they need a spark. I can't get a whole new offensive line and put them in. I can't bring in 5 new wide receivers. The easy thing is change the quarterback. And then if that doesn't work, you might be changing the head coach. So
Jared
here we
Stidham
are.
is the spark.
He says he's anxious. This is his actual words. He's anxious to see him play.
Yeah, that's coach speak.
It is. I think
Uh,
it's a mixture of those things, but as much as anything, the money.
oh, that's 100% it.
Yep.
but that's ballsy considering your team has a shot at the playoffs. Now it's not going to be easy, but you got a chance. And to bench the guy who started the quarterback for you all year, I don't know, man. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know. We got to figure out what the fan base is thinking here.
The real question is, what is the future of Russ? Is it pretty much over?
Mm. I think they owe him too much money, unless someone wants to trade for it.
No,
But
he'll be
I'm
going.
sure
Man. I just read he's they're all the word out there is he'll be cut in early March.
they're going to have to bite the bullet on that one. They're going to lose a bit of money, I would imagine.
Nobody's going to trade for him. Not that contract. So
Mm.
they'll probably just cut him and then move on into the draft.
Who's your MVP right now? Vegas says it's Lamar Jackson. Do you agree?
No, it's been
Okay.
good, not great. This whole thing that the MVP is automatically the quarterback on the best team. I can't get into it. I think it's stupid. He's had a good year. It's not been stellar. The metrics aren't great. He is winning. I'll give him that. But the Ravens being the Ravens with 6.5 minutes to go and up 21, I was still fully convinced they were going to lose. They
Well,
gave up that
the
quick
blueprint's out. That's
touchdown
what
and
they've
then
done
had the
all year.
ball right back again, a 3-and-out. I'm like, they're going to drive down here and score again. But luckily, the defense came through.
Yeah,
I think
that's the
it's
thing.
true that quarterbacks have to win it anymore. There's no way in any way, shape, or form that CMC shouldn't win it. But he won't. He'll win Offensive Player of the Year, whatever that's supposed to mean. That doesn't count for MVP. So my answer would be no. I think it should be CMC.
Well, this isn't going to be much of a debate because that's exactly what I wrote down
Mm.
in the show notes here. Lamar Jackson's been under 200 yards passing 6 times. He's got Miami and Pittsburgh on deck. They're both tougher matchups for QBs. So that's, it could be higher than 6. Now, his MVP season, same deal. However, he had 1,200 yards rushing
He's
that
got
year.
700 now, which is a lot.
He's still on
I
pace for
think it's
less
like
than
top
900.
15 in the league for including running backs. But again,
36
they'd be
passing
crap.
touchdowns
They'd
compared
lose
to
every game
19.
just about without him. But I think the 49ers wouldn't be half of what they are without CMC. You can't take any other back in the league and put him in there and do what he does. You just can't.
11 games of over 100 total yards. Not only is he leading the league in rushing yards by like 300, but he's also tied with Brees Hall for the most receiving yards by running backs.
Mm,
He's the man, and I'm with you 100%. 21 total touchdowns. He should be the MVP.
I agree, but it is what it is. It's always almost any non-quarterback has to have a something like Adrian Peterson. Isn't he the last non? And he only got it because he almost broke the rushing record. He had like 2,100 yards.
I was yelling at the TV to give that guy the rock. Man, I wanted to see him do it.
Yeah, I did not. I'm not real big into guys that abuse children.
Well, was that before or after?
One or the other.
Okay. Well, that's another astute observation by you, Kevin.
Thank
Impressive.
you.
This is wild. We don't get
Thank you,
paid for
fine
this.
sir.
All right. Any other news and notes you want to touch on before we get into these games?
Don't you want to talk about Sam Howell? We'll wait until we
Um,
get to their game.
he's already been benched twice. What's the third time?
Well, I like bringing up players that you are in love with that I don't, that I'm not. So
Hey, yes, I'm in love with him in fantasy football realm. Not in real life. He is not good in real
did
life.
you play him in week 1?
I think so.
Yeah, that was like his second biggest week, I think, of the year or so, wasn't it?
I don't know. I have to look that up, but I know I was not upset about it. He's
Fair enough.
QB 10. He's still QB 10 on the year, even with getting benched twice the last 2 weeks. No, actually, week 1 was one of his. He scored 16, and that's one of his lower weeks.
Mm,
He's only scored under 18 like 3 times,
gotcha.
not counting his last 2 weeks when he was benched.
Gotcha.
All right, let's look at these games. The first one of the week, the Rams take down the Saints 30-22. Derek Carr. This is like two games in a row, 3 games in a row. He's put up some points, almost 30 in this one. Rashid Shaheed, I mean, throw your dart, you got him. But Olave had a nice game, 9 for 123 for Chris Olave. And then this was a Puka Nakua week, 28 points, 9 catches,
Yeah.
164 yards, and a score. Matt Stafford, 4 straight games with 20 plus fantasy points.
No, you could make the argument that they are currently, the way they're playing on this very moment, the second best team in the NFC.
The Rams?
Yeah. The way they've been playing recently, they're beating the hell out of everybody. They look great on both sides of the ball. They're winning games they should win.
I think that's getting a little ahead of us,
I
ahead of
don't.
ourselves.
I don't.
Okay, so who would you bet put your money on? The Rams or the Niners?
Niners,
Okay, Rams or the Lions?
Rams.
Ooh, I would not. Although it's going to be interesting the way things are panning out right now. That could be the first week of the playoff matchup there for you.
They're
Right?
my thing with the Lions is we make no bones about our love for the Lions, but I still think they're 1 or 2 players away or just 1 year away. I think they win too many games with smoke and mirrors, and they will not
They're
make it
11
far in
and
the
4.
playoffs. Yeah, they are.
11
Yeah,
and 4.
that's correct. I just don't see it adding up in the playoffs.
All right, next one. Pittsburgh smashed the Cincinnati Bengals, and this game is a prime example of how frustrating fantasy football can be. Pat Fryermuth had the best matchup on planet Earth for tight ends going against the Bengals, put up a goose egg. All while Mason Rudolph had almost 300 yards passing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, T. Higgins had the worst matchup in all of football going up against the Steelers. All he did was go off for 140 yards and a score. It's so irritating.
Yeah, I had him in and out of my lineup because of the
Yeah,
fact the Steelers, he scored 10 more points in this game than the Steelers for fantasy points in this game than the Steelers usually give up for an entire team in a game.
yeah.
A lot of it was on 180-yard touchdown, I believe, but nonetheless, I put the screws to myself. In this game, I
10
did not
Bengals caught a
expect this.
pass.
I thought the score would be flip-flopped, but it's the NFL. You never know.
10 Bengals caught a pass. And then on the other side of the ball, not to be outdone, George Pickens goes 195 yards receiving. So what are you thinking? Like probably 10, 12 grabs, 4 catches, just shy of 200 yards at 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a 86-yard TD, 66-yard TD, all on my bench in my league of record. Now, granted, I was out. I'm not playing for anything, but I've got great news. Just another dagger in my freaking back. This week, not only did I have the high player of the week, Amari Cooper, I had the highest weekly total. Both these things get me money. My team was so good, even with Pickens on the bench, I still set the weekly high for the entire season, which is going to get me a bonus here at the end, unless somebody breaks it this week. All in what week? Week 16, while I'm playing for absolutely nothing. So I wrote in the
That
league
works, man.
commissioner notes like, oh, what could have been? This is what I had expected all along. A quarterback that could do something. All these badass receivers, points left and right. Bijan, points left and right. And I didn't even make the playoffs.
Well, I'm sure some people got a little irritated with Gabe Davis because he was
Oh,
either on your bench or going against you. There's no way that you started Gabe Davis if you had him. 4 catches, 130 and a touchdown. This guy has done next to nothing all year.
yeah,
It's
the week
just
I started at 0 catches for 0 yards and 0 touchdowns. It was awesome.
he has just as many 0 games as he does 18 or more point games.
How's that even possible?
He's got he's got 4 zeros. He's got a 1.1 and a 1.6.
And those were games that the zeros, they're games he played. It's not like he got hurt. He played the whole game.
2 targets in one. Oh no, he did not. He did play against the Jets, but he
He
didn't
just
have a
didn't do
target.
anything.
Memory serves me right. And then he had 2 targets against Chiefs and one against Cowboys.
Unreal.
It's yes, unreal. And it's also unreal that the Chargers were anywhere near this game. They only lost by 2. I know they're playing at home, but come on, Buffalo just whooped up on the Cowboys. Josh Allen had a good game, and that was it outside of that Gabe Davis deal. And then you can you imagine having Chargers on your team like you rode Keenan Allen to get you to the playoffs and Herbert and gosh, what is it? That's tough.
Brutal.
Absolutely brutal.
We should have looked. We should have. I thought about this the other day. I wasn't in a place to do it, but to just write down of the 32 teams How many of them don't have their week 1 starter starting this one in week 16? It's got to be close to half the league.
Well, I mean, I got all the teams in front of us right now: Jets, Patriots, Browns, Steelers, Bengals. Jaguars started CJ Beathard. Colts, the Texans, the Titans, the Raiders, Broncos this week. We have to add the Broncos because this week it won't be, they'll have somebody new. The Chargers. We're up to 12, by the way.
And that's just the AFC.
Right, right. The Giants, the Commanders, the Vikings. Well, we can't count the Bears had Tyson Badgett for a while, but we can't count them, I guess, because Fields is back. The Falcons, I don't know who's starting this week, so we can throw them in
It's
there.
supposed to be Heineke, I'm pretty sure,
Okay,
if
so
he's
we can,
healthy.
yeah, so we'll throw them in there.
That's 16.
Yep. And that'll be it because Geno Smith is back. But as far as on the season, there's probably only 5 teams that didn't start a backup quarterback,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Just
There's
between
no way that's
injuries
happened in
and
history.
guys just sort of sucking, it's a nightmare for fantasy because you're right. You might have had this good team all year long, and all of a sudden it falls to pieces because everybody's hurt.
Yep. The Jets were up at one point, was it 20-0 and then 27-7 on the against
Yep.
the Commanders, but the Commanders came back, made it interesting. Only lost by 2, 30-28. The only news and notes from this one is Brees Hall with almost 40 fantasy points. He had 95 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and he had 12 catches for 96 yards through the air.
Could you rub it in a little more?
That'll what?
Because it's not like I played him last week for his 2.7 points.
Yeah, boy, this one,
It's just not my year, buddy. I've
that's
accepted
all
it.
right, man. It's all good. It's all good.
It's not.
Not mine.
It angers me, but it is what it is.
You'll make it. I got faith in you. The Seahawks pull out another close game against the Titans this time, 20-17. DK scored and Tyler Lockett did okay for you. Derrick Henry, nice solid game from him, 88 yards on the ground and a rushing score. He also had
Woo!
a passing touchdown. He always has a couple of those, 1 or 2 passing touchdowns a year.
And he's got 2 on the year now.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting fact about DK Metcalf here. He has 10. We say this about Cortland Sutton all the time about how his range of scoring. Now DK stepped out of that range, but he has 10 games where he scored between 9 and 14 and a half points. 10 games.
Yeah,
That's
he's
tough to
really
do.
only had 1 huge game.
Yeah, so he's been consistently a wide receiver too.
Yeah, matter of fact, he's the second highest he's had all year is 17.9.
Yeah, not even a wide receiver too, because 9, 10, 11, 12 points. You need more than that out of your wide receiver too.
Wow. Yeah, crazy stuff.
I know. The Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings and become the NFC North champions for the first time since 1993. Hats off to you, Detroit fans. It's been a long time coming. You deserve it. Glad to see it. Jahmyr Gibbs is a beast. David Montgomery did his normal thing, 55 yards on the ground and a score. And Amon-Ra St. Brown. I know you're worried about him, but they have their defense needs to pick it up some, but they can run the ball and they can get the completions they need when they need them. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a third down monster. I mean, he always seems like he's open crossing the middle of the field whenever they need him. And then Justin Jefferson, 6 for 141, a touchdown. He's quarterback proof, and my gosh, he's incredible. Did you see that catch he made in double coverage when it was like 3rd and 19 or something for the
I don't
first down?
believe I did actually.
Oh, it was. I mean, he's what, 6 foot maybe, and he looked like Calvin Johnson out there.
6'1",
2
195.
defenders. Yeah, I don't know about that, but maybe.
He plays taller.
But yes, he certainly does, especially on that play. If you get a chance, look it up. It was great.
Yeah, I am worried about the Lions. So I'd like to see them make the Super Bowl in the NFC, but there's something about them that I just think they're a year away.
I do hate that they have to play Dallas in Dallas this week.
Could be tough.
Yeah, no kidding. The Falcons whooped up on the Indianapolis Colts 29-10, but that's what happens when you don't have your number one wide receiver, Michael Pittman. He was out with a concussion. And I'm telling you right now, buddy, if Pittman is out, the Colts are done. They're currently tied for the division league, but division lead, but it is not happening without Pittman. They had their second lowest total yards and second lowest passing yards of the season outside of a win against Carolina back in week 9. They had 2 pick sixes in that game. The offense didn't need to do anything. So basically, this was their worst offensive game of the entire season. And I know it's a concussion. He'll probably, hopefully, be back this week because they're absolutely going to need him if they plan on winning any games for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and it's crazy because the Jags are essentially saying, "Please take the division, please,"
Oh, I know.
and the Colts are just saying, "No, thank you." It's losing to the Falcons, who aren't awful,
Handily.
but yeah, they got crushed.
Handily.
They got crushed.
Yeah.
The
Taylor
Taylor
Heineke beat you. Yeah. But guess what? Bijan Robinson had what was it, 19 touches? Good things happen whenever you do that.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a
Incredible.
lot.
Carolina almost got another win. That would have been what their third win of the year against the Green Bay Packers. But Green Bay was able to win. Was it last second field goal?
Yeah, I mean, it was
33-30. I think
tied, so it wasn't like they were going to lose, but yeah,
yeah, but I thought I remember that being just right there at the very end.
yes,
Jordan Love had a nice game, but it's not hard to do whenever you're going up against the Carolina Panthers. And although Bryce Young got 22 fantasy points and threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, I still have not seen a single play where I thought, "Wow, yeah, there he is, number one receiver or number one pick overall, right there. Good job, Carolina." Not one play,
yeah.
not one throw, nothing.
He's got to be a little distraught by this point in the year. The endless losing, the injury here, injury there. Uh, yeah, you don't see any kind of excitement where he's like a transformed human being from this time last year.
Yeah. Moving on. Unfortunately, I know we're both. I think you are. I'm definitely pulling for the Houston Texans. They had no chance against the Cleveland Browns defense without C.J. Stroud. Oh, this is what his second game he's missed now with that
Yes.
concussion. So they got to get him back. Davis Mills actually didn't play half not all that bad. I mean, his completion percentage was terrible, but I don't know. He got 2 touchdowns. He
Yeah.
didn't throw any picks. So going up against Cleveland's defense, it's probably as good as you can hope for with Davis Mills out there. No fantasy goodness for anybody else on that team. And then Joe Flacco, man, 28 fantasy points, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns. He got his normal 2 interceptions, but it didn't matter. And then do you want to give us a Amari Cooper stat line or what?
It's funny because in week 1 of the once done, I felt like a genius for playing him when he got 24 points. And then these
Yeah.
other jokers decide to throw him in because of that, and they get 49 out of them. 11 catches, 265 yards, 2 TDs. Like I said, I love it because I have him in my league of records, so he got me those points as well. It was just sick, man amongst boys.
Uh, yeah, no kidding.
He loves
Since ta-
himself some Joe Flacco, doesn't he?
He does, and I posted this on our page on Facebook page a little earlier today. Since taking over 4 weeks ago, Joe Flacco has 30 more fantasy points than Patrick Mahomes. That's like 8 points a game. And Baker Mayfield has 32 more
I don't know
fantasy
how it's
points.
not more than that. The numbers he's throwing up.
Well, he's had 2 games at 16, but then he's had 2 monster games after that.
Gotcha.
But let's go, Joe. And you know what's wild is he's going to be on the street in the offseason.
He sure is. They'd rather pay
Makes
Deshaun Watson so that they can lose.
0 0 cents. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you mentioned the Jacksonville Jaguars. They really are doing anything they can to give this division away. Baker Mayfield, he had himself a nice game. I just mentioned him, 283 and 2 touchdowns. Uh, Chris Godwin was okay. Rashad White dominating again. Mike Evans dominating again, 7 for 86 and 2 touchdowns. And then outside of Calvin Ridley's 2 scores, one from each quarterback, Trevor Lawrence and CJ Beathard. That's really it. I guess Evan Ingram had 10 catches for 95. But man, this Jaguars team, I'm worried.
Yeah, I mean, 4 weeks ago they were tied for the AFC's best record. Now they've lost 4 in a row and in ugly, ugly fashion. It's not like they're going out there. This isn't even competitive.
Well, and
I don't know, and I
even
don't know
before that,
what do they do to change things. It's not. I mean, Trevor's a little injured, but if you're that injured that you're going to be getting murdered, you should pull yourself out. I just don't know what they're going to do to turn the tide here. They're lucky they're in an awful division that nobody wants to win.
yeah, Doug Peterson better get his group together. And then Rashad White, he has 10 straight games of 12 or more fantasy points. That dude does it
Yeah,
week after week after week.
he's dreaming. Like I said, you could ask half the people you know who's the starting quarter or running back for them. They would have no idea it was him yet. Here we are. What is he,
My
number
favorite
3 or 4 overall now?
um check that. I'm going to go into the next game. You look that up real quick. I
Hey,
think it
buddy.
was 4 going into the week. But in my favorite game of this past week 16 was the Miami Dolphins took down the Dallas Cowboys 22-20. My Eagles need some help, and that came in the way of Tua and company, although not a whole lot of fantasy output for this one as far as Miami goes. And then for Dallas, just Dak and CD. What a combo they are. If you targeted them in fantasy drafts, CD in the second round or so, and then you got Dak a little later on. My gosh, has that paid off for you?
Yeah, it started off really slowly. Through about 4 weeks, people were pissed off. Then CD became the squeaky wheel, and then boom, it just went from there. Rashad
Right.
White's number 3 right now. McCaffrey, Mostert, White, Etienne, Kyron Williams. Is it Kyron or Kieran?
It's Kyron. I think you asked me that weekly.
Which is it?
It's Kyron. Yeah.
I
So
wanted to ask you twice.
I see. I know it's 9:05. 7 days from right now at 9:05. You're gonna ask me again.
I hope so. That'll
That's
make me feel good about myself.
the Bears gave the Cardinals another loss, 27-16. Justin Fields, 97 yards rushing and a touchdown. Khalil Herbert. Then see, this is another thing about fantasy. All week, all the guys that know what they're talking about. Well, Deonta Foreman's not going to play, so Roshan Johnson's a guy to have here. Khalil Herbert's not doing anything, so keep Khalil Herbert on your bench. And what's he do? 20 carries, buck 12, and a rushing touchdown. So, I mean, so irritating. Cole Kmet, 4 catches, but 107 yards. I watched a couple of his catches, man. There wasn't anyone around him. I mean, not a soul. Absolutely wide open run down the field. And
So
then James Conner's a man. He
yeah,
gets it done time and time again. This time through the air, he had a receiving score, 5 catches, 67 yards. And Kyler Murray was okay.
I really wanted to play James Conner because I was itching for a
Should
second
have.
running back. I know I should have, but he's for some reason I can't trust him. I don't know why. So
So,
let me ask you this: has Justin Fields done enough to keep his job?
well, dude, I'm so glad you asked me that because what the Chicago Bears do with Justin Fields and the number one pick in the draft is, man, it's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most in the offseason. I can't wait. Personally, I don't think he's done enough. I'm not a Fields guy. I wasn't a Fields guy ever. Still not. But
The
I don't know
problem
what the
is
Chicago Bears are thinking.
Arizona's number 2, and I don't know that they're going to move on from Kyler Murray, even if there's a chance they could.
They're in the same boat. Both those teams are in the
Right, they
same
are.
boat.
They've got what would be perfect is if Washington ends up number 2. If that would happen, then Chicago really has to make some choices because they could basically, or sorry for those out there, but lack of a better term, trade rape Washington because they could and move switch 1 and 2, let them take the quarterback. They take Marvin Harrison Jr. 2 and about 3 or 4 more picks, which is what it seems these teams do anymore. Man, I'd have a hard time passing that up, or even New England doing it with them. But I don't think Belichick. Well, he won't even be there. But
Right.
I don't know. I just man,
Well, I went back and looked at some field stuff, and fantasy has nothing to do with reality.
Of course
However,
not. You need to win games, right? They don't care about us.
right, right. But just to show how up and down he is, this fantasy sort of gives you a glimpse sometimes into how they did in real life. He had 38 fantasy points a bunch of weeks ago. Next week, 4, 21, 9, 24, 9,
Yeah.
24, right? And then they got a tough matchup this week against Atlanta, but they're playing at home, so we'll have to see. But if you know, if there's a pattern here, he's going to have a letdown week.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends what you it depends what you could get for that pick. That
Right.
it might be it's because it's not like he's Sam Howell. It's not like he's Mac Jones. And never just a guy who you know is not going to be your long-term solution. I don't know. It'd be tough. It'll be interesting to see in the offseason how this shakes out. First of all, the draft order.
Uh, I have zero confidence that Justin Fields will lead the Bears to a Super Bowl.
I don't necessarily know they would either, but I don't necessarily think I have any confidence that Caleb Williams is going to lead anybody to one either. He barely led USC to a winning record this year.
Yeah, I just don't think he wants to go to Chicago.
He's MVP this, MVP that. They talk of everything or going to be, and what did he do? He did nothing. He wasn't even in the Heisman talk. Two guys in his own freaking conference finished ahead of him.
Yep. It'll be this day. Draft season is one of my favorite parts of the year, and it's coming up. So
It is.
we'll see how that all pans out. Next up, the Patriots beat the Denver Broncos 26-23. I don't know how this stuff works. I don't understand football, the NFL. It makes no sense to me. Russell Wilson had one of his better games, I think, 225 for 37, 238 and 2, and now he's going to the bench. I don't know, man. I don't know how or why the Patriots won. Football's weird, man. And it was on the road in Denver.
Yeah, but it's good because it'd be boring if the team we thought should win always wins.
That's true, but that
Yeah,
was only
this
their
is a
fourth
hard
win
one
of
to
the
really
season.
understand.
The Broncos were rolling there for a while. I mean,
They were. Now they lost two in a row.
yeah, what were they, like a 6, 7 game win streak?
You were excited a couple weeks ago if you named a couple of things that could happen. Next, the Broncos win the division. Well,
Yeah,
part of your soothsaying was correct. The Chiefs have
exactly.
sucked. But
Chiefs are
for some
terrible.
reason, Broncos are like the whole AFC South and just like, no, thank you. Take it.
Come on, Denver. I put it out there in the world. I am beating the Chiefs down for you. I'm giving you an opportunity, and now
Almost
you're
impossible
squandering
now.
it.
That's the
Oh
magic
yeah.
number's one. They'd have to win both and KC lose both now.
How about the Kansas City Chiefs, who were just mentioned, lost to the Raiders 20-14, and the only fantasy relevant person was Zamir White, who had 22 carries for 145 yards.
Yep, but no score, so it still didn't amount to all that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, but nobody else. No Mahomes, no Kelsey, no nothing.
Yeah.
This is lame.
One thing I'd ask about the Chiefs that I thought is you can't get anything going with basic offense. So why are we running trick plays? Why are we running direct snaps to Pacheco for him to toss to a wide receiver, which ends up getting returned for a touchdown? Why are we
Because
even
they can't do
bothering with
anything
that stuff
else.
right now? I know, but I really think they need to get back to the basics of what they've always done and just roll with it. Then throw in all this crap that's helping to cost you games. Did you see Kelsey's little rant on his podcast? F this, F that, F everyone.
Oh no, I haven't seen that
Yeah,
yet.
but I mean, call himself as well, calling out the whole
Sure.
team, coaches, players, owners, you name it. He called everybody out.
Well,
Because the way
they've
they look
also
now, you were right all along. Because they look great for a certain portion of the year. 4 weeks ago, they were the number one seed. Now, man, they're going to be fighting to keep the division.
they've lost 3 of their last 4 and
Yeah,
5 of their last 8. That is not that probably hasn't happened to Kansas City for how many
it's
years?
been many, and it's not a good thing to have as you're rolling into the playoffs.
It certainly is not.
So they
The,
they lead the league in drops by far. They lead the
oh
league
yeah,
in offensive penalties by far. They're like fifth in the NFL in turnovers. You add those things up, and it is not a winning. The fact they've won as many games as they have is really quite amazing when you're leading in those things.
yeah, I agree. The Eagles beat the Giants 33-25. Obviously, I watched every play of this game and I was annoyed. for 90% of them. This game was, I thought, closer than the score. Philly
It's
cannot
very
put teams
competitive.
away. They went up pretty big early and could have put the foot down and ended it quick. They chose not to. Saquon had a nice day. Do you think, Kevin, after listening to my starts of the week and saying Darius Slayton you should play, do you think anyone actually did it? Because he scored 19 and a half fantasy points.
No,
Oh no. I
no,
wouldn't have either,
because I
but
wouldn't have started him anyway. I would
um
have started Wandale because Slayton only had three
no.
targets. They just turned into great things.
Yeah, that's what he does though. He
Yeah,
gets that big play. He's a big play guy. He scored a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, Jalen Hurts, both fine. Devonta Smith, fine. AJ Brown. Boy, AJ Brown started the year. His first half of the year was incredible.
it sure
And
was.
really fallen off lately. He's not very happy about it.
He's not
But
broke 16 points since week 8.
Philly has got to run the football. I don't understand all the passing.
Yeah, the play
I don't get
calling was very bizarre throughout the entire game. I
a
really,
year
and you
throughout
know
the
how
entire
good your
season.
defense is. Why would you want to have them on the field for 40 minutes?
DeAndre Swift had 20 carries, averaged just shy of 5 yards a carry. He had 92 yards on the ground. And Kenneth Gainwell averaged 7 yards a carry with 6 attempts. Why aren't we running the ball?
I don't know. I don't understand. It makes
No one does,
little
Kevin.
sense to anyone. And you have a defense that's arguably the worst in the league. Why would you continually want they come off the field, make a stop, come off the field, you do a quick 3 and out with 3 passes, and boom, they're right back on there in about 30 seconds of real time or of game time,
Right.
about 3 minutes of real time. It's crazy.
I know.
And their defense anymore, it looks like Jalen Collar's the only person that even bothers to play defense, and he goes out and have 2 personal fouls on. It's just really weird, dude.
Well, last year Philly was I mean fighting for the NFL record for sacks in a season. And this year they're tied for 15th. And that just exploits a secondary that wasn't good last year either. But when you're not getting that pressure, it makes it's glaring. So they got to figure out a way to get pressure on the quarterback because it ain't happening.
Yeah, some's got to change. I don't know what it's going to be. What can you really change going into week 17?
Like, scheme, man,
Yeah,
scheme
I
it up.
know, but if you haven't changed it by now, my point is you're most likely not because
Gotcha.
I
Yeah,
most teams don't turn a corner in week 16. But
that's
but you
true.
never know.
We got to figure it out now.
Like I said, they're still a team I wouldn't want to have to play in the playoffs. I'm
It's
way
so
more
interesting.
scared of them than the Chiefs at this point, if that says
Well,
anything to you.
it's interesting because I feel like your theory on why you don't want to play the Eagles is the same as why you wouldn't mind playing the Lions because you're worried that the Eagles could put it together at any time
They
and
could.
absolutely dominate a game. The Lions theoretically could, but it's more like it's more likely that's not going to
No,
happen.
I
They're
could
going to
see the
put it,
Eagles going into a game always winning. I can see Detroit going to a game and either winning 38-3 or losing
yeah,
38
right,
3.
right, which is weird with an 11 and 14.
It is, but I think they've done it. Didn't they lose a game roughly around that score to somebody a few weeks ago, didn't they? Who was it that murdered them?
We got to work on your verbiage.
You don't like murdered?
It's so angry.
Um, Muck Duck. Oh, they lost the Ravens 38-6. That was the big game. 28-13 to the Bears. Yeah, and their defense gives up a lot of points. Even when they win, they give up a
Yeah,
lot of points.
yeah.
So
They get to the
do
quarterback.
I love them? Do I want them to win? Of course. Do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl? I do not. As dreamy as it would be.
Aiden Hutchinson leads the league in quarterback pressures, but just can't finish it. He just can't get the sacks.
And if he doesn't, then the team ends up getting a 14-yard gain.
Right? Absolutely. All right, buddy. It's time. Time for you to shine. The Baltimore Ravens beat
So
the
watching this,
49ers pretty handily,
yeah,
33 to
yeah.
19. Fantasy stuff. Lamar had a good game. Zay Flowers decided to show up. He looked really good, honestly. And then Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle were the stars here, but Ayuk also had a good game.
Yeah, watching the game, buddy. Right off the bat with the safety, it's 2-0. And I'm almost to the point like, you know what? I've had a good day. I'm not ruining it watching this trash.
I did what you did last week, where you thought about texting me but decided not to.
Yeah.
At that moment, I made that same decision.
I was just like, I can't, I'm not down with this. I've had a great day. Screw this. But I said, okay, I'll keep it on, see what happens. All these whiny Ravens fans talking about how that referee caused that freaking safety. He didn't cause that safety. He's just trying to get out of the way. That was going nowhere anyway because Lamar still does this thing. If you ever watch any of his tape, he always just runs backwards. They can have the ball on the 2 yard line. He goes for a pass. He releases it from the 20. I don't know why he does it. It rarely helps. It didn't help there because he was running dead left anyway. He's being chased by, was it Bosa chasing him? He was never going
Everybody.
to be able to get that ball back to the line of scrimmage anyway. It's going to be a safety whether he tripped over the ref or not. So that was a bunch of crap. Um, but man, after that, he made some beautiful tight throws. A couple off ones too with some really nice throws. They couldn't stop them running. They couldn't stop them passing. They were scoring, getting in the red zone. But we talked before the show with 6.5 minutes left. I was still fully convinced up 21 that the Ravens would lose because that's what been their MO this year. You know,
Mm.
they've led in the fourth quarter every single game this year, every single game, and some of the three they lost by double digits. But man, the defense stepped up
Crazy.
there at the end. That Roquan, he is a beast. Now I'm really worried about Kyle Hamilton because he, as much
Mhm.
as Roquan causes all the trouble and havoc, Kyle Hamilton's the key to the defense because the dude is as good a safety as anybody in the league. He's just everywhere. So I'm really worried if he's out for a playoff run. But man, it was a fun game to watch. I enjoyed it, but it's still nerve wracking.
San Francisco just didn't show up on either side of the ball.
No, they just look
And
like a half a down off on both sides of the ball.
yeah, I don't, man, that defense. I, I have a lot of questions coming out of that game. I still, if I had to bet on who's going to win the Super Bowl, I'd still put it on San Francisco.
So would
We're
I.
all allowed. We're all allowed to have a down game.
Yeah, and
But man,
Purdy, two of his interceptions were tip balls. Some of it was fluky. Two of them were awful, but two of them were just tip balls.
you usually you have the really good teams. Somebody shows up, right? Like Philly just dropped 33 points, but they gave up 25. The offense showed up
Yeah.
decently, but the defense didn't. But that, usually one of the two, decides to get off the bus. San Francisco, neither side of the ball really put anything together.
I mean, it didn't look good, but they threw for over 300 yards, rushed for over 100. It just
You
didn't amount
can't,
to points because of the turnovers.
yeah, you can't have five turnovers.
Yeah. I saw going into the game, the Niners had, at one point, they had scored like their last 10 possessions in a row once inside the red zone, 10 in a row. And then that stopped very abruptly and continued to stop
Yeah,
throughout the game. Yeah,
sure
they
did.
just weren't scoring. They had a couple guys had big numbers, but those four turnovers when you're playing a team like the Ravens, you're in trouble. You're in trouble with anybody when you have four interceptions. When you're playing arguably the best defense in the league and a team that can also score, you're really in trouble.
Yeah, well, there were five interceptions. Purdy had four,
Oh
but
yeah,
Darnold
five.
only
I was just talking about Purdy's, yeah, because Darnold's at the end was a desperation. That was fourth down from like in goal from what like the 15, 16, and just
something.
yeah, just chuck it in the end zone. Hope our guys get it. But it was
All right,
fun to
sir.
watch. Ravens got to shore up a few things, so you can't give up almost 500 yards of offense and expect to keep it going through the playoffs. So hopefully they can figure something out there.
Certainly cannot do that. This week, looking ahead real quick before we get to our starts of the week, Detroit at Dallas, big game for everyone involved. I would imagine that San Francisco at Washington, San Francisco is going to be pretty ticked off. Um, I would not want to be a commander on the field. I wouldn't want to be a fan. I wouldn't want to be a coach. And then Miami at your Ravens, man, that's a big one there. A lot of implications for that one is who the one seed in the AFC is going to be. So those are the three biggest games that I'm looking at.
Yeah, whoever wins that essentially has it, unless they would fall apart in week So I think it's although or week 18 because right now Baltimore's ahead by a game, but if Miami beats them, obviously they're tied, and Miami has the head-to-head tiebreaker. So for all intents and purposes, I think who do the Ravens have last week? They have somebody relatively Pittsburgh,
Somebody in your
although they
division.
lost to them before, one of those double-digit leads. But Miami has Buffalo,
Yeah,
which could be
that's
for the division. So
going to be interesting.
yeah, this is a fun end of the season. So many mediocre teams, or at least teams with mediocre records.
I'm glad the Bills are back in the playoff hunt, though.
Me too. Absolutely.
All right, sir. You want to lead us here on our starts of the week?
Well, sure, buddy, Ro.
Excellent.
Let me look at my quarterbacks here. I went with somebody who I can't stand yet. For some reason this year I've gotten a slow fondness for. I went down the rung just a little bit here, and I went with Kyler Murray against your Eagles.
Mm,
They're such an awful defense that if DeVito and Tyrod Taylor were eating them up, why can't Kyler Murray? Right?
why not?
Yes, I
Why
roll with
not?
Kyler Murray against the Eagles in a really I wouldn't call it a must-win game anymore. But the
I
Eagles
hope
could
you.
still end up the number one seed.
I hope you paired it with Greg Dortch because I don't think Hollywood Brown's playing.
That I
And
did not.
well, you might Darius Slayton, might as well. All right, for me, we just talked about how poorly he played, but I'm getting back with Brock Purdy, and I'm doing it. I know he's a QB5 on the year, but going into your fantasy championship week, you might be scared after because for some reason, no, still nobody thinks Brock Purdy's any good. But look, Washington is terrible against quarterbacks, and like I said, San Francisco's got a point to prove. They're going to come out swinging, so I would feel pretty good with Purdy in my lineup if I was playing for a title.
I would generally speaking, but the Washington's actually in the better half of the league against quarterbacks the last 4 weeks.
Only for the last 4 weeks, yeah, but for the season, they're actually the worst, even worse than Philly is.
So you think week one really has a lot of factor?
No, no, no. But I have absolutely no issues, no worries, nothing with Brock Purdy at all, not even
Oh,
a little
me
bit.
either. Anybody who benches him now simply because of one bad game, you just shouldn't be playing. It's
Well,
that simple. Everybody has a bad game. Other than that, he was the odds-on MVP going into the weekend. He has one bad
right.
game. Now you're going to just throw the guy away. It would make no
And
sense.
he dropped down. He's like tied for fourth now, I think.
For the odds, yeah, he dropped a
Yeah.
good bit. I think it's what Lamar
Christian McCaffrey.
and then Tua.
Yeah, two. Well, actually, maybe he's tied. Maybe it's third. Maybe it's like Brock and Tua and somebody else. Maybe Dak. I don't know.
So
I
we're
can't
in for
remember.
Tua, one of my preseason bold predictions.
Oh, you're right.
My Tyreek Hill, and that's not going to the ankle injuries ruined his 2,000 yard season I predicted, but he would I think he'd have got it if he not had not gotten hurt. He's
So
missed
do I.
a game and a half because of it.
All right, who's your running back?
Let me look see. Who did I write down here, buddy? Oh, I picked your boy. The third worst or giving up the third most points against running backs the last 4 weeks of the Cardinals. So I went with your boy D Swift.
Well,
Had a good
that's
week
silly.
this week. Now he gets to play a cupcake defense, and maybe they'll actually listen to you and run a little bit.
You should be able to play him and Kenneth Gainwell. There needs to be 35 to 40 carries with the running backs this week.
Why not? Why
But
not even give B
yeah,
Scott a couple? You love him.
I oh, Zamir White is my guy. If he is the guy in Las Vegas, Indianapolis has not been very good against opposing running backs. And last 2 weeks when White's been the man, 16 points and then 14 and a half fantasy points. So look,
Yeah, and
they're
he
going to
had
feed him
145 yards. You
they're
throw him a
feeding
score,
him.
he's over 20.
Yeah, whoever the running back is, they're feeding him the rock. So throw him in there.
Well done, sir. My wide receiver, fine, sir. I went with Mr. Rasheed Rice. I think that our boy Mahomes just needs to give him about 15 targets and say that the rest of you guys suck. I'm done with you. I'm just going to throw to this guy and Kelsey, chuck a couple to CEH out of the backfield, McKinnon, and I'm done with the rest of you. Go run your routes to open up the field for Rice. He's the only guy that can run routes. He's the only guy that's where he's supposed to be. He's the only guy certainly that can catch.
He's my guy as well. Good matchup with the Bengals, and he is the absolute only capable receiver on that entire team. So
Playing at
I'm
home, and all of a sudden, this all of a sudden these games matter. KC's not used to playing games this time of season that have so many implications.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be the 4 seed. They're not going to
If
lose
they're
the
lucky.
division. They're not. That's not going to happen. But they could end up being the 4 seed and
Mhm.
playing. What would didn't I read it would be Mahomes' first ever road playoff game?
I believe that is no, it's a 4 seed. They play at home to
No,
start.
no, I don't mean. I know, but I
If
mean if they would win,
yes,
it'd be his first ever. Then he's only ever played home playoff games. He's never had to play on the road unless
yeah,
you count the Super Bowl on the road.
and as it stands right now, the first team they play would either be the Cleveland Browns or the Buffalo Bills, depending on how the season plays out.
Both teams who want a little revenge on them for the last few years, and neither one of them. Everybody, if we're sitting here talking about it, you know what they're doing. They're licking their chops, ready to lay into this team because the whole AFC is sick of the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, for sure. Tight end, sir.
Tight end. I went with Mr. Gerald Everett against the Broncos. Third worst against tight ends the last 4 weeks. He's had about did I see he's had 7 targets a game the last couple of weeks. And why not go with a guy who again doesn't inspire greatness, but in any given week might get you 15 points. And in the tight end world, that's pretty spectacular.
No, Kevin. I wanted to do the same thing. I actually typed him in to my notes, and then I went and dug into it a little more. He scored 10 points once this season.
That's all right.
10.3 against your Ravens. The last 4 weeks, 4.4, 3.9, 4.1, 4.2.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it.
I could, because on top of it, no Keenan Allen, and most likely they're saying no Josh Palmer. So I think he's going to get peppered with some targets, and I'm going to go with him. So who you going with, buddy? Another
I'm gonna
Pat
pull
Frymouth zero burger?
yeah, I wanted to because he has an incredible matchup as well. But screw you, Mason Rudolph. Um,
We got
no,
work on your language.
I'm gonna pull an anchor man and read the teleprompter. Jake Ferguson. I wrote a question mark in there because I don't feel good about any of these tight ends. But Detroit does give up the eighth most points to tight ends over the last 4 weeks, and Dallas is probably going to have to put up some points in this one. So they're going to need to throw the rock around a little bit. And Dak Prescott likes Ferguson.
That he does. There's no doubt about it. Defense. I went, and I'm only doing this because people would always play them anyway. But coming off of that debacle, I went with the Niners against Washington.
Well,
Because Niners
that's
defense has actually not been stellar. I know they're winning a lot, so people they are, but if you look at their overall metrics, they are not, some top 5 defense who can't. People have moved the ball in a lot, especially passing.
fantasy wise, they're eighth. So they're, I mean, it's a top 10 unit, but it's not like it's the Cowboys or the Ravens.
Right.
For me, now I'm going to need Will Anderson to be perfectly healthy here, but I would go Houston Texans at home versus Tennessee. Houston needs a win. Will Levis has 10 turnovers in 8 games, and Tennessee has only scored more than 17 points 5 times all season.
Yeah.
They've been under 17 points every single week except for 5. So you're not worried about them putting up a ton of points on your defense. You get a turnover or two here, there. You're good to go.
I would particularly like that if Stroud comes back because then Tennessee's going to be playing from behind
Right.
and throwing up a couple quick picks to you.
Yep. All right. So anything else from you?
No, not particularly. Can I give you a terrible thing from my nephew Frogger over the weekend? He's in
I
the
don't know.
fantasy semifinals against Whitey, the Skull Mafia. Frogger's the League of Shadows. Going into Christmas Day, Whitey was done. He was 7.4, I think, points ahead of Whitey. Or ahead of Frogger. Frogger still had Aiden O'Connell and the 49ers defense to go. Down only 7.5 points. And I'm thinking, man, I'd bet my house on Frogger winning this game. He's got O'Connell, who coming off the game of his life, 63 points. The Niners defense, always good enough. And I figured, you know, good enough to get a few points against the Ravens. Then Aiden O'Connell, first game since 1980, a team wins after not completing a pass in the second, third, or fourth quarter. Ends up with 1.6. The Niners start off with the safety. And I'm thinking, oh, well, the Niners are going to save them here. Nope. I think the 2 points was all they might have had a sack or something. So they ended up with like 3 points because they ended up with some negative. And Frogger, he didn't just lose, he ended up losing by like 5 or 4. It was crazy. The fantasy is just the
The
worst.
worst.
The
The
absolute worst.
absolute worst.
You're down 7,
That
you have
being
your quarterback and defense left, and you still lose by 4.
that being said, I'm getting very excited for the offseason. The older I get, the more I do this, the less excited I get for the fantasy part, and the more excited I get for the real football part, the free agency, the trades, the draft. I love all that stuff,
Are we still going to try to figure out Detroit?
dude. I'm gonna have a 2-month-old.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not my fault you couldn't keep that thing in your pants. What's that have to do with
Okay.
me?
All right. Thank you all for listening. Get your Bell Football Podcast. Check us out. Spotify, YouTube, Facebook. I hate you, Kevin. I'll see you in a week.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, people.